The Bitcoin Group, the American original. For over the last 10 years, the sharpest Satoshis, the best Bitcoins, the hardest cryptocurrency talk. We'd like to welcome our panelists. Victoria Jones from Satoshi's Page.
Hello, hello. Good evening, everyone.
Adam from Starship Schrodinger's Destiny.
Hello.
Robert Allen from CoinCube.io.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening.
And I'm Thomas Hunt from the World Crypto Network. Moving on to issue one, of course, the price of Bitcoin, which seems like it's up a little right now, if you can say that. The price of Bitcoin is down 3.83% in the last 24 hours, with a last of 61,131, a high of 63,950, and a low of $59,200. That's $1 for 1,632 Satoshis, really far away from the 1,000 Satoshi barrier. It's hard to believe that we were ever on it or on the other side of it. Ethereum is down as well, $1,600 for Ethereum, up in the last hour, down 10% or so in the last day. Binance coin up in the last hour, down 5% in the day. XRP 5%, Solana 6%. In general, we see it the larger percentages for the last 7 days, 16, 20%, 21%, some at 36% for Zcash. I heard that they had a bug that was discovered by Opus 4.8, or one of the new models, and it went down. Bitcoin cracks $60,000, sinking to lowest level since October 2024. So we've time traveled back 2 years or so after Michael Saylor's strategy sold Bitcoin to fund dividend payments. But there's more to it than that, so much more. Victoria Jones, everyone cares about the price. Let me try to find the magic 8-ball while you tell us about the price. Go ahead, Victoria.
Yeah, it's a bit depressing, isn't it, for us long-standing Bitcoiners who have seen such incredible highs. But of course, along with the highs come some of the incredible lows as well. Those of us who've been in Bitcoin for a while have experienced all of this before. We appear to be right in the midst of a typical crypto winter. But of course, on this occasion, it's exacerbated by a number of other factors that we've not really seen before. I think in the past, when we've had crypto crashes, it's normally been a single entity like the FTX crash or the Mount Gox in 2014. But this is different. I think there's been such hype, especially with the ETFs, and especially when you've got such big wallets coming into the market. Of course, there was a lot of expectation that the price was going to be much higher. But of course, a lot of these financial professionals are much more savvy when it comes to financial markets. So perhaps they haven't piled in as much as people expected them to pile in. But then, of course, the fact that you have had some people pile in, when it goes down, it kind of accelerates down as much as it accelerated up. I mean, it's important to remember that the ETF started getting into the market when the price of Bitcoin was about 40,000. So, the fact that we're now at the around 60,000 level, if people have stayed in and they've seen the highs and then seen it come down, you're going to be right at a level now where people are starting to think, well, normally it doesn't go below the previous high, but if it's gonna breach that level, then we better take some profits now. Otherwise, what's the point of being in it at all? And of course, a lot of these people are very naive to what Bitcoin is. A lot of them don't understand that the Bitcoin price has a cycle that doesn't operate in the same way that the stock market does. If you've got financial professionals who've come into the market thinking that it acts like anything else in the stock market, or it's correlated to the S&P 500, then you're working with a misunderstanding that is definitely going to get you into trouble. I think it's also worth pointing out that the S&P 500 has had a bit of a drop today. And of course, there's a lot of hype over a number of IPOs, which is distracting people and sending money into that market. But Bitcoin's narrative is still strong, and there's still a lot of very strong believers in what Bitcoin is designed to do. So, I don't think all hope is lost. I think it's definitely going to come back, but I think we're probably going to be in this situation for a number of months before things turn around. It's just the state of where things are with how Bitcoin works. And I think you just have to, by now you just have, if you're able to just hold tight, eventually things will turn around. But it does seem a bit gloomy at the moment.
It does seem like today there's a attack even on larger idea of the investing class, with the stocks going down, the gold going down, the silver going down. Victoria, do you think this is a market-wide contraction? I mean, we've talked for a long time, and other people have talked about the loss of optimism of the 1950s and 60s, and that people used to believe in something. And it was fun for a while to believe in Bitcoin and believe in the market, and that the stock people were coming and that the price was going up. Now, that belief, that idea, that belief, and we'll talk about it more, I'm sure, and in general, it's hard to separate these issues. That belief is now in the AI space. That belief is in the Anthropic and the SpaceX and the OpenAI. And what do you think, Victoria? And I
I
don't know if
think
there's
it,
any
I
belief,
think,
and even those things, they destroy society. So they take all the jobs away. So everyone wants to invest in the new stock that kills every single other stock. So if you haven't been hit yet, if your industry is still fine, they're coming for your industry too, right? So Victoria, what do you think? Is it a larger market problem? I'm sure you probably think so.
Yeah, I think I've mentioned this before. Ultimately, what happens in the stock market, if you go back far enough in time and you understand the dynamics, it's all to do with how much liquidity there is. Um, and so, what tends to happen is when you have these big movements, it's about the fact that, if everyone wants money to go into these crazy APIs, they'll take it from everywhere in the short term. And people can be notoriously fickle, especially if they're looking for the next quick buck. Not everyone has the stomach to hold to their principles through these gyrations of the market, especially when it comes to investing in things that, as you say, are designed to destroy society. So yeah, I mean, it's starting to feel to me, not that I was at all interested in finance in 2001, but it's like the dot-com bubble, isn't it? It's almost like there's something building. Um, watch out for the next 9/11 just to give you the final nail in the coffin. And then, we've got a whole year in order to, grieve that and set up the next cycle. When you have this exuberance and everyone just thinks everything's going to the moon forever, not just Bitcoin, but stocks as well, and house prices, although house prices have been struggling for a while. When you're in those sorts of situations, you're just crying out for a situation that kind of resets everything again so that you can rebuild, because the energy gets stretched too far. And we're creating a society now where it's kind of, it was always an issue between the haves and have nots, but I think that separation is kind of getting wider and wider, and there's only so long you can do that for before the people who are at the bottom just end up rioting because their needs are completely being unmet. We all understand that it's a corrupt system. We found a way of understanding that it's a corrupt system, so we found a new avenue. But what frustrates me so much about Bitcoin is that there are so many new people who just want to jump on the Michael Saylor narrative, when what we really need is we need people, running nodes, understanding how the software is, standing up to any kind of corruption that might be being built onto the software without it being noted, for challenges that that are being made to software developers who seem to be erring towards corruption, especially if the developers are being centralized, that needs to be challenged as well. It's like the financial markets have really done a number on us in terms of distracting us, focusing on number go up rather than the fundamentals. And I think it's really distracted from what needs to be built on the ground, which I think is a real shame. I think eventually it will turn around, but there's been a lot of damage in the process. And if some of those changes aren't monitored and stepped on quickly and changed, then yeah, Bitcoin's potential is going to be lost forever. And there's been a lot of worry around that, not just been going on in the financial markets, which is affecting Bitcoin as well. So, that needs noting. I've heard Peter Thiel say that he's not invested in Bitcoin anymore because it doesn't match its fundamentals. Not that I necessarily think Peter Thiel is someone that everyone should follow, but these people, were in Bitcoin from the beginning. They understood what it was designed to do, and they're aware of when things start to change away from what it was meant to be. Um, I'm very disappointed in Michael Saylor, really. As much as he seemed like he was going to be a champion right at the beginning, he's not um, he's not aligned with Bitcoin's fundamentals at all. I think he's just requisitioned it for his own narrative, because he's found this way to manipulate the traditional financial markets using Bitcoin, and it hasn't done anyone any favors. It's just confused a whole load of newbies who think that all they have to do is hold Bitcoin forever, and then it'll mean that they've got a piece of the digital Manhattan. But then, even though people have followed him like lemmings on that narrative, they're now in a situation where he's demonstrated that he can sell Bitcoin, and he's quite prepared to at any time. So, which is a huge change of narrative and hugely disappointing. And so, of course, people who've just kind of hung their flag to Sailor, thinking that they can just follow him and they'll be okay. I mean, that's really discombobulating, especially in a situation like this where you've been watching the price drop and you've been holding on, because you think your hero is never going to sell, and then finally he does sell after you've watched the price drop by 50%, and then in a week it drops by another 20%. I mean, it's enough to make anyone depressed. So yeah, I really feel for everyone out there who's been misled, who is really struggling to understand what's going on. I think it's very sad. Not surprising, but I do feel for them, really.
Go back to that conference, he was telling everyone in the room, and they were cheering about how you should take all of your Bitcoin, create an investment vehicle, sell shares to your friends and family, use that money to buy more Bitcoin, keep it in your investment vehicle, and that you're an idiot if you owned a house. You're an idiot if you owned a stock, or if you owned a dollar bill or anything other than crypto, i.e. Bitcoin, only Bitcoin. And that this simplicity, and again, we've been through this before, you can get into heaven if you pay enough silver. That was a big problem for a while, right? We're in the same simplicity here, where people have not gotten smarter. People have not gotten more complicated. If anything, they've gotten dumber. They're still dumb. It's 250 years. We got together. We're like, yeah, we don't like a king. Especially, we don't like taxation without representation, this whiskey tax, this stamp tax. These are unacceptable stamps to us. We don't want a stamp on our whiskey. But now we've forgotten all that. And like I was saying earlier, Victoria was saying, we could have just invested in Palantir, McConnell Douglas, and Lockheed, and all these missile companies if we wanted to make money, because apparently that's the only thing that does. And everyone said this, and there's nothing new. It's not creative to say this. Oh, the first time it's said. No, it's been said many times. But yeah, it's not the movement. It's not this hero of Saylor. It's the individual people that make the movement. And there's nothing exciting or sexy or easy way to say that or do that. Robert, do you want to go first? I see you're unmuted. You want to go?
Yeah, sure. So, on the one hand, I do think that we should step back and remember Bitcoin is very well engineered. It has survived many, many deaths. It continues to come back. And it still works fairly well, if you want to move money around the world, if you want to, you know, take $1 million or $1 billion and cross a border with some words in your head. It's a tremendously powerful technology. Um, but that said, I also don't think, and I've said this before, I think on this show, it's not a guarantee that Bitcoin is ultimately going to fulfill its mission and do what it's intended to do. And to be clear, Bitcoin was built to separate money from state. This has always been the purpose of Bitcoin. And people have tried to come along and co-opt that vision, Saylor being probably definitely the most prominent of the bunch. And he was able to get a lot of people hyped on price, right? And like you mentioned, Tom, it's just this like maniacal, um, sort of initially embracing Bitcoin, sort of, at least in the sense of the price is going up and it's protected by, digital hornets and all of this sort of, all these nice metaphors and nice sounding ways to rally people. And then also it's, everyone likes the story of winning and hey, we're winning. We've got this big company. They're buying thousands and thousands and thousands of Bitcoin. This is going to push the price up. Everyone's own greed gets, sort of flamed up and accelerated and excited in this environment. And then this all leads to last summer, the famous paper Bitcoin summer. And now we're feeling the ill effects of people funneling money into financial tools instead of Bitcoin. And to be clear, if you're buying MSTR or any of these other stretch or these other stocks, you are buying equity in a company. You don't own Bitcoin. You own, depending on what you've purchased, you may have sort of like, it might be a senior debt obligation where you're going to get paid out first, but you don't own Bitcoin. That was never the deal. And so, a lot of people got hoodwinked really terribly by this guy. I've been skeptical from the start. And really, when you step back and look at it, it's what's different from what he's doing in a Ponzi scheme. It's really, I don't see a difference fundamentally, right? You're getting money from one group of people with the promise that you're going to pay back another group with that money. Now he's using Bitcoin as his, leverage machine, but the problem is it also leverages on the downside. And so, these people, these tools, if you want to call them that, are not without risk. And this leverage could cause Bitcoin, we could go very much lower from here. We could have max pain. Bitcoin is known for that. And in some ways, it would almost be amazing if Saylor did get liquidated and he just got wiped out, because it would be yet another story of not your keys, not your coins, and for people to hopefully, I mean, it seems like they'll never learn, but you have to hold your own Bitcoin. That's the whole point of this thing. It's to have money that is not inside the financial system, that is not beholden to governments, where you don't need to go get a license to trade it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so for all of these retards who don't get it, I'm sorry, but like you need to go read more and understand Bitcoin. This is not just a get rich quick scheme. It's never been that. You really have to you have to have a revolutionary spirit, quite frankly, to be a Bitcoiner. And a lot of people don't have that. They don't have the guts. So I would say bring on the pain. And the other thing I'll say about this is I do think that on the technical side, I see Core as basically a rogue, group at this point. Core 30 is an attack on Bitcoin. And we need to embrace BIP 110. We need to get back to what are the fundamentals of Bitcoin. And it is not a data storage tool. It is a technology for transmitting value across time and space. And when people get mixed up on that and they think they're going to start storing JPEGs, and look, and my opinion on this changed a lot. I got sucked in early on into this whole thing thinking, oh, this is a new use case for Bitcoin, blah, 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 blah. It's nonsense. It's an attack on Bitcoin. So I really think we need to liquidate Saylor and we need to liquidate Core. If we can do those two things, Bitcoin can survive, and we'll get back to building it with people holding their own Bitcoin. And that's why I'm working on what I'm building with CoinCube, because we need self-custody, we need multi-sig, and we need people to understand how to do their own custody. So, all right, that's my rant.
Well, Robert, I do think you're right about people holding their own Bitcoin, and that everyone said, oh, we can do Bitcoin without all the keys and Bitcoin without the self-custody and without the learning about the Trezor and all that. And they said, oh, we can skip these steps, we can jump ahead. And that's what this leads to, right? Where we have all these Bitcoin in exchanges that we don't know if they're in exchanges. We don't know how many are there. The banks are like rapidly jumping in and out of them. They're clearly not using the keys. They're not moving the coins around. There's not actual Bitcoin transactions being done. We don't know about any of these things. They're all black boxes, which, like you say, going back to 2008, that's what Satoshi was mad about. The mortgages were in the black boxes. We don't know what people are investing in. With Bitcoin, you know, it's one of 21 million. It is the digital bits that it is. Was supposed to change all this.
100%.
But again,
Saylor
if
has not published
they
proof of
halfway
reserves.
adopt, they get
Yeah,
halfway
we don't know
results. Go
Saylor's
ahead, Ron.
reserves. We have no idea. He's using Coinbase. These coins could have been rehypothecated 10 times, and that would explain, or could explain, the reason the price has actually not gone up at all. Because if it's just people trading, paper, but the real Bitcoin is actually not moving, then yeah, I mean, you can paper over a market. This is what they did to the gold and silver market. They were successful for probably 20, 30 years, suppressing the price of gold and silver until the last year when it finally ripped up, pretty significantly. But 100%, that's the goal, is they want to financialize this and just tame it and control it and basically kill it. It's their way of killing it.
Well, and I was going to tell this story at one point, whether it's true or not. And I know Victoria told this story before, and we don't know if it's true, but the classic story here is that the Rothschilds during the Napoleonic Wars had early information on the results of the battle at Waterloo. They knew if Napoleon was going to win or not. And because of that, they could make their plays on the stock market. And again, it's not necessarily historically true, but it makes a good story if you tell it in a way where you say, instead of just betting that, Napoleon had lost, the British stock market was going to go up, which was the obvious play, according to the popular version of the story, Rothschild starts betting that the market will go down. Everyone sees this and says he has the best information. He is the smartest person in town. And a lot of this is about that information, right? And that Rothschild bets the market's going down. Everyone joins in with him. The market goes down. They sell all their stocks. Then at the bottom, Rothschild allegedly buys back in. The news comes in, Napoleon has lost, British stocks are valuable, they've won the war, so the stocks go up, and somebody is the smart guy at the bottom. Now, I don't know where this bottom is. This is a horrible, awful well that we're in. We're down a well. Timmy's down a well. There's no ladder. There's no bucket. We're in a well. And I don't know if it comes back. I mean, everyone's the 4-year market or the halving cycle or all these things. There's a lot of talk about Bitcoin not being cool. And for a while, I thought this didn't matter, and that, like you're saying, Bitcoin is cool beyond the need to actually be cool. That the underlying the properties itself are cool and produce coolness and value, thus value. But there's a point right now where AI is cooler. And as we're going to talk about later, and we can't stop talking about it because it perceives every issue, the AI stocks are cooler. The SpaceX stock is cooler. Not being cool is a big problem for Bitcoin, and how we burned off our cool, and if it was the meme coins, or if it was the up and down nature in general, or if it was because it's hard to use. I don't know. We're going to go to Adam Schrodinger's, Starship Schrodinger's Destiny. What do you think about the price of Bitcoin? And everything else are all over the board here.
Well, look, this is how a Bitcoin bear market works. There's a halvening, and then it goes up for a year and a half, and then in the third quarter, it crashes down in a series of 3 or 4 massive slumps down to the 200-week moving average, at which point everyone is massively depressed and sad, and that's when the bottom is. And we hit the 200-week moving average yesterday, didn't we? So I think there's a good chance we're at the bottom. I'm glad to hear you're all very depressed, because that encourages me to think this is basically it. I think we go down for another month or so, maybe down to 58 perhaps, and then Valhalla is what I expect to happen. Michael Saylor, he sold some coins that he only sold 32. He's got a 250,000 of them. He's got nearly 1 million coins. He sold 32. That certainly isn't why the price has crashed down. He'd said in his call that he was just going to do that to prove that he can do it to pay the dividends, even if Bitcoin goes down. So he's proved that. There's no need for him to say any more. I think it's nearly time, not quite, but nearly time to get bullish.
Starship, and I do agree, when there's blood in the streets, when people are crying, that's when to buy, and so on and so forth. But it is the hardest time, I think, to give that advice. Santa Jen in the chat is joining us. He said, business cycle is king. I like what Adam is saying. though for the rest of the year. So there's a lot of this confusing time where everyone is secretly bullish, but the market is bearish and you keep losing money every day. And they say, just stay in there and maybe it comes back, because you don't know when it comes back. And if it comes back in full force without you. Again, I think I don't have the chart here, but the classic thing to reference is, of course, Isaac Newton and the South Sea bubble. I'll get the chart up here, but Isaac Newton was doing good. He made money off of stocks. And then he exits, he's happy. Then the stock goes up way more. Newton re-enters to chase the money so he can be rich like his friends. He's now unhappy. And then Newton loses all of his money. So I think we're in that. And people love this story, again, if true or not. I think partially true, because Newton is such a genius. Everyone's like, oh, Newton inventing calculus and, theorizing about gravity, getting hit on the head by an apple. He's so smart. I'll bet he's a good inventor. No, Isaac Newton, also a crap investor. Who knows which part of this chart that we're on now, though, with
Trump
certainty.
is the new Newton, isn't he? Based on your next story.
I know. Well, if you think it's coming back, they've made a lot of sells, but Trump is full of other things. I think it's more like the Rick and Morty episode where they're at Blips and Chips, and he plays the virtual reality video game, and he puts the helmet on, and he loses the life, and like the whole world's about him. They had this bit in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy where Zaphod Beeblebrox, who again is more Trumpian than you can possibly imagine, his job, of course, as president of the universe was to distract from the people who are actually running the universe. And in this quality, of course, Zaphod was the greatest president in all of intergalactic history. And Zaphod thought very highly of himself. And at one point, they put him in this like infinite perspective vortex where everyone would go crazy because it starts out with you and then it zooms out and it shows you like how big the universe are and like how small you are and how insignificant your every complaint is. And especially in this market, you are so insignificant. You buying or selling doesn't matter. You supporting or not supporting this politician or whatever, it doesn't matter how insignificant you are. And based on this, most people just go crazy and they go insane. And they put Zaphod Beeblebrox in this machine, and it's a spoiler for a 30, 40-year-old book at this point. So if you haven't read Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, skip ahead. But Zaphod Beeblebrox learned that the entire universe really is about him, and that he is the most important thing in the universe because he's not in the actual universe. He's in some kind of mini universe that is actually about him. And that's where we are. Trump is Beeblebrox. Trump is the person with the VR helmet on. We are non-player characters in his world. And things are just happening. Things are just happening every day. We'll try to move on to issue 2, like Victoria said, but really they're all the same issue. Donald Trump media moves to sell Bitcoin as losses reach $455 million. We talked about Michael Saylor and how he took a little bit of the air out of MicroStrategy's tires there. We also have David Bailey with the Nakamoto company, that Japanese company that was holding Metaplanet or whatever, had the Bitcoin. And then, of course, El Salvador also still hodling Bitcoin treasury companies, Donald Trump Bitcoin treasury companies. What do you think, Starship? Are they a good idea? Are they going to stick around? This is a major test for them.
I love what Trump's done. Classic new behavior. Buy right at the top. Wait for the whole bear market. When the bear market reaches the very bottom, then sell it all at a massive loss. Perfect. Lots of cheap coins for everyone else. Trump gets a massive loss and we all get to buy his coins. I can't think of anything better than that. The treasury companies in general, I mean, Saylor's one might work a bit. Some of them will work a bit, but mostly you want to have a company that just earns money. And you just want the money that you earn to be stored in Bitcoin.
It is such a bad example. Trump out there, like you said, buying the top, selling the bottom, and then perhaps all of these treasury vehicles forced to do the same. Nakamoto talked about how they had an algorithm or something. It was going to tell them when to buy or sell. That obviously didn't work for their first major buys, which I think they did under pressure of press release. They wanted to say to the press that they owned a lot of Bitcoin, not that they were waiting for the right time to buy. Robert, what do you think about Donald Trump's company potentially selling and the broader idea of Bitcoin holding companies and how they will survive this bear market?
I'm not surprised about Trump's failings here. I mean, you can't expect people who have no idea what they're doing to just jump into a market at the top and, perform beautifully. So, I mean, either they totally screwed up, or if you want to be more cynical, you could think maybe it was a planned attack and they're just, you know, trying to tank the price. I don't know, but most likely it's just incompetence. In terms of just the more broad question, I don't. Yeah, I mean, you heard my rant about Saylor. I think this idea that you're just going to print money by holding Bitcoin and then pay dividends and all, it just, to me, I can't see a difference between that and basically a Ponzi scheme. So I think it's a terrible idea overall. I mean, it again, like Adam said, if you have a business, it would make sense to put some of your savings into Bitcoin. It's a great tool for that. But to try to just basically get people to give you their money so you can buy Bitcoin for them, for what purpose? Everyone would be better off if we held our own Bitcoin. Again, that's the whole point of the technology.
Let's go to Victoria. What do you think about Bitcoin holding companies and President Trump perhaps selling from one of his?
Yeah, I never really bought into the idea that Trump was fully behind Bitcoin. I mean, as I've said many times before on this show, the fundamentals of Bitcoin are the complete antithesis of the fiat system that he is set up to represent. So the whole narrative was always a red herring. And I think Robert's close to the real agenda. It's part of trying to destroy Bitcoin's reputation, which I think will end up being very successful. And as you were saying earlier about knowing what's happening so you can buy it at the bottom, I think that's exactly what BlackRock are doing. They're waiting for the very moment that Bitcoin hits its bottom, and all of these ETFs could already have been set up in order to manufacture exactly that situation. Because so much of people's buying power, especially the retail investors who've all been encouraged to jump on Michael Saylor's bandwagon. I mean, if I were the evil ruler of the world, that is exactly what I would do. I would set up a stooge to tell everyone to run in this direction because it's going to be great, and then I would have a mechanism to make sure that they all got wrecked on the way down, so that I could scoop up everything that was left at the end. And if you're remotely savvy, you are aware that that's what's going on. It does not change the fact that Bitcoin is incredibly well designed. It's got a fantastic underlying structure that is deliberately designed to disrupt the fiat system. But in order for it to fulfill that destiny, you need people who really understand what it is, and who are prepared to die on that hill and develop the infrastructure that will give us that. I think this whole ETF thing has been a total distraction. And people are going to get burnt as a result of listening to Michael Saylor and following him hook, line, and sinker. The best lies are based on a partial truth, and it's like he's picked out the best parts of the narrative while completely undermining exactly what Bitcoin is designed to do. I'm so unimpressed. But that's the world we live in, and the only thing you can do in that situation is see through it, and wait for the point at which we come out the other end, and keep working on building the other infrastructure so that we do come out the other end and fighting the battles that we need to fight along the way as well.
It was interesting to see Saylor come to supposedly our rescue, and for him to have this idea of Bitcoin as the two-legged stool. He didn't see it as a currency. He never said, oh, not only is it a digital gold, but it also functions as a currency, which is great for the internet, which has no currency and needs something like this. They even had it in the browser spec for early versions of Netscape and Mozilla and things like that. Maybe Mosaic. But still, even before that with the HTTP stack. But anyway, we need internet money. He didn't see that. Cuban and others saw it as a digital gold. And it really is a bad example. Like Starship was saying, that you could come in at the top, buy the top, ride to the bottom, sell the bottom very publicly, and probably bring a lot of people with you. It's not easy to say this. I'm not going to take credit as financial advice. You do what you got to do. A lot of fortunes are made going against that kind of movement. If you hodl at this point, if you ride it through, maybe it comes back, maybe you're fine. If you sell at this point, like Starship was, if you follow Trump, buying the top, selling, like you're done there. So that's over. But maybe you're going to chase the stocks that are available in the next example. But before that, let's go to the exit question. Let's get on the board. Maybe the computer is even listening in the future, reading the transcripts. What will the price of Bitcoin be this time next week? Starship, higher or lower?
I think next week probably a bit higher, but I do not think the bear market is over yet. I think I expect us to hit 58K at some point, maybe even down to 55 before we've hit the real bottom.
Robert, higher or lower?
I think 58 is a good target, maybe a bit lower.
Or lower? Victoria, higher or lower? Are you frozen?
I'm not frozen. Are you frozen?
Good.
I think we've come down so dramatically, we'll probably get a little bounce over the next week. So I'll predict higher.
All right. I can't find the magic 8-ball, and I don't even know if I'm on the air anymore. But here we go. Will the price of Bitcoin be higher this time next week? We ask the online magic 8-ball, and we get the answer. Very readable. And it is, I would think so. I would think so. So a little bit of positivity there from the online magic 8-ball. And you can check out our shows and more. We've got shorts and more at worldcryptonetwork.com. 4,971 videos, counting a bunch of shorts, which you can see on YouTube and more for free. Check it out at worldcryptonetwork.com. Issue 3, and we talked about this a little before, my internet connection is unstable. Bitcoin star fades as investors flock to lustre of AI and megacap IPOs. Anthropic, OpenAI, and SpaceX are all available soon on the IPO market. Robert, what do you think? Are these stocks cooler than Bitcoin? Certainly people are perhaps selling their Bitcoin to buy them. Do you think that they're going to make money? And they don't necessarily have the inside track. It's easy to say, I think that Claude is cool. I want to buy him. But I'd probably have to wait till the stocks have already popped on the first day or the first hour. Then I don't know if I'm buying into above the market because it might drop because people are doubting these things. There might be another push, then maybe good in a few years. I don't know financial advice, but Robert, what do you think about the mega cap IPOs coming down the line?
Well, caveat is I have not paid a lot of attention to the stock market since I got into Bitcoin. I'll be honest with that. But my understanding is in the last few years, most IPOs have not been a great time to buy. Most of the gains, I believe, have been coming to the investors who got in before the IPO. I would expect that's probably going to be the case with a lot of these stocks as well. So I would be cautious. Yeah, I think, it's tricky. I use Claude and other AI tools every day. My opinion has probably even evolved since we talked last. I think, quite frankly, that software development is never going to be the same. And there's no putting the genie back in the bottle. Whether or not these companies will be profitable anytime soon is another question. They're, investing tremendous amounts of money in these build outs. So, profitability versus usability or usefulness are different things. Although obviously longer term, you'd think if it is a useful tool that there would be a way to make it a profitable business. So I don't know, I guess I'd be cautious and just exercise caution.
There really is so much hype in this AI market. it seems like that if there's a dip, I'd want to buy it. But at the same time, if there's a dip, the whole market could die. People are that much on, like, they don't know if, like Robert's saying, if it makes money. There's already so much money spent in the company, in the software, in the data centers, in the rollout. There's that circular economy where NVIDIA invests in Microsoft, Microsoft invests in AI invests in NVIDIA, and they're circling the money up, which later years we could look back and say, oh, that was so obvious. But we don't know now. Victoria Jones, or go to
Well,
Rob.
sorry, let me just one more point I just want to make real quick that I thought of as you were talking there that I think is worth saying. Yeah, I'm also running OpenClaw, and I have a decent Mac Studio. I think it's got 64 gigs of RAM, so I can run some decent local models, and so I've been playing around with that. They don't compare to the best Claude models for sure. But, at this point, one potential outcome or one future that we could see is the open source models continue to improve, the spec requirements reduce. I actually have a partner in a business venture who's working on using ternary instead of binary for AI computation. He's got a bunch of very early stage experimentation and work that he's doing around this. But the idea there would be that you could potentially run very powerful models on smaller computers. So, that would be you know, a big mix up in the entire market if you have all of these centralized services, but then you end up getting local models that are, 80, 90% as good. And then potentially if you use things like a Ralph loop, for example, for coding, where you basically give it, some specific test that you want the code to be able to pass, and then you have it work in it, it'll, write some code, it'll test it, it'll write again, it'll test it, it'll keep doing this in a loop until it's able to pass all the tests. That sort of setup means that, you could have a model that's 80% as good as the latest Claude, but it'll actually get you the same result. It'll just take a little longer because it'll have to do more loops to get to the functioning code that you need. So that's an angle that's worth thinking about in terms of how this could all play out, and that would definitely disrupt some of these big companies and their model.
It is very interesting, Robert. I wonder how they're going to make profit if, like you're saying, if you're using Claude at the top as a director and Claude gives tasks to Gemma or it gives tasks to an open AI instance or one of the local free models, things like that, you're not using as many Claude tokens. You're not making money for the Claude company. The idea, I thought, was we're going to use lots of tokens. Lots of companies are pulling back. Spotify, Uber, some of the others. They used to say programmers use as many tokens as you can. Now they've realized that's a huge mistake, and they're much more worried about getting value for their token use, which is a whole new economy that it seems like has sprung up overnight. Like we're talking about, like it's old hat, but everyone knows you've got to manage your AI tokens. Victoria Jones, what do you think about AI, SpaceX, cooler than Bitcoin?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a saying, isn't there, in the financial markets: buy the rumors, sell the news. So, I strongly suspect that, there's a whole load of hype going on at the moment as people think all of these things are the next big thing. But then, of course, the moment they launch, it's not quite so amazing. I mean, the trouble is with so much about the stock market, it's people making bets on the future. And there's only so far you can go with that. I mean, you can put together decent scenarios, but there can always be something out of left field that completely disrupts that. And also, human beings are remarkably creative. Um, and so, a lot of this hype is based on assumptions that aren't necessarily correct. The problem with AI is it's just based on logic. It doesn't include instinct. It doesn't include emotion. And so, a lot of the decisions that human beings make are not just based on logic. They're also based on instinct and emotion. And so there's potential with AI that it gets to the stage where it starts to feed on its own tail. So it may seem successful in the beginning, but then has the potential to destroy itself in the fullness of time, because it's not as robust as human beings, especially as you've got all these companies laying off their staff because they think AI can do a better job. It's way too premature to be making those sorts of decisions, but it doesn't stop people making them, because of course we've got other problems in the economy that makes it hard for those businesses to be profitable in this environment. So I think it's really unknown. AI is far too new to be making those sorts of assumptions. There are plenty of things that could go wrong. At the moment, Bitcoin has more of a track record than AI does. So I'd be betting on Bitcoin for the time being, not AI. I can definitely see this blowing up in everyone's face at some point, but hey ho.
Gordian knot problem, and we've seen it on Silicon Valley. They were joking that the AI would delete your entire code base, so you wouldn't have any problems, and you just go to the beat. And now we've seen that in real life, where it deleted the entire code base or it deleted somebody's database. And I would say again with the Gordian knot, you build an AI system and you fire all your engineers, and you have a problem with your AI system, and you don't really know how your code is built and what it does. You're going to wish you had those engineers back. And I don't know if we're going to go there, because sometimes you can fix it with AI. But what do you think, Adam? What do you think about AI and SpaceX and the other cool stocks?
These things, these companies have been hyped a lot, and all the people who own them currently are planning to sell in an IPO. So that is not necessarily a very good sign. The credulous hype market hypothesis states that no bubble will burst until every ounce of hype has been drained out of it. But what I think is the most important thing to bear in mind with these IPOs is that these three companies are going to come in valued at like $1 or $2 trillion each, which makes them a significant fraction of the entire stock market, which means all the index funds managing everyone's pensions are going to be forced to sell some of what they've got and buy some of these new three companies instead. That's going to pump the price, of course. And then finally, we hit that moment of maximum hype when the bubble bursts and all of the companies drop 80% like they did after the dot-com, for instance. That's going to leave like £200 million drained from everyone's pensions and dropped into the pockets of Sam Altman and Elon Musk. I don't think that's going to be good for the economy or anyone, but I do expect some kind of pump from the stocks as they are released until we get to that maximum moment of bubble popping.
Well, we'll just have to see how it goes till then. Our next issue is going to be grab bag. We've got 3 or 4 issues here, and you choose one to talk about. The next issue could be Standard Charter's crypto bull sticks to $100,000 Bitcoin call despite a painful week. Retired couple loses $76,000 life savings to Bitcoin ATM scam, sues Bitcoin Depot, which was already going out of business, in federal court. And continuing the Bitcoin ATM story, the canary in the coal mine, as we've been saying here for weeks and weeks, and they finally put into Bitcoin Magazine, state regulators have begun quietly implementing regulations to ban or overburden Bitcoin ATM operators. And a Bitcoin billionaire books his first SpaceX Mars mission. The F2 Pool founder Chun Wang plans a Starship flyby of Mars before SpaceX attempts to land on the surface. I think I'm talking to myself, but let's go to Robert CoinCube. Do we have any internet left?
I heard you. Am I supposed to pick one of those?
Yep, pick one that you think is the most interesting and tell us what you think.
Okay, well, I guess it's interesting because it sounds almost exactly what happened to my parents, but the ATM scam was the final step. So they had already drained my dad's green wallet, aka the Blockstream app, because he gave them the PIN, and dear man was very confused. But then they tried to get my parents to go to an ATM with cash to deposit, and it sounds like the same thing where they were claiming they were FBI agents. It's probably like actually the exact same scammers that scammed my parents. So, but in terms of suing the ATM company, I mean that's a bit of a stretch. I mean, it's very sad that they were convinced to do these sorts of things, but I don't know if the ATM company is really responsible for their own stupid decisions. So anyway, yeah, it's a sad situation. One of the downsides of Bitcoin is, yeah, if someone can convince you to do something stupid and they get the Bitcoin, it's gone. So got to be careful.
Sad, Robert, and I do think that they're going to ban Bitcoin ATMs for it. It's a typical thing where there's a problem in our society that if a scammer gets an old person on the phone, they can convince them to do anything. I've heard stories of people that you wouldn't believe going into the bank, and the bank has a limit of like 5K, and they need to get 7K for the scammer. They'll talk the bank into raising their limits. They wouldn't do this to buy a used car, to do anything in the world. Totally upstanding, normal people. They'll lie to the bank to get the limit to go up to pay the scammer. To be polite because they're on the phone. You can't hang up to somebody that's on the phone. First thing, you got to hang up. No matter what's going on, just hang up the phone. I think we're going to do public service announcements about that, even though the Bitcoin ATMs will be all gone. Victoria Jones, your choice on grab bag. What would you like to choose this week?
Well, the billionaire who wants to do the flyby past Mars, I mean, honestly, bless his cotton socks. I mean, I took my young daughter to Disney World when I was younger, and they've got a ride in Disney World called Mission to Mars. And of course, the whole setup of the story is that you're walking towards the ride, and it's kind of like, oh, you're going to be the first people to land on Mars, and this is going to be an amazing adventure. And then you go on the ride, and then right at the end, as you're coming in to land on Mars, I mean, you've been in deep sleep stasis for like 2 months in order to get to Mars, and then you come into land, and there's a load of bunkers and a runway as you come into land, and your first thought is kind of like, they lied. We're not the first people on Mars, because who built the bunkers, and who built the runway for the spaceship to land on? So your mind starts going 20 miles an hour, and it's just like, if they lied to me about this, what else have they lied to me about? And so, yeah, I mean, there's so much to do with space that is completely unknown. Obviously, NASA's given us a narrative of what they think we should know, but I have to say, quite frankly, I don't believe a word of it. So good luck to the billionaire, but I think there are way better ways to spend your money. Why can't he solve world poverty or something like that? Who wants to spend their money going on a flyby to Mars? I mean, good grief. Call me cynical, but I think there are way better things to do in the world.
It does seem like a very sad waste of his money. He could be, fixing people's lives, like you say, with poverty, or maybe exploring the ocean, which is right there. It's right nearby. You have to go to Mars and sleep there forever, so you can wake up and watch the planet fly by. I still think back to the Virgin Airlines flight attendant who somebody told them about Bitcoin, and it got in their head, and they bought, earlier than all of us, smarter than all of us, held it pretty long, but not that long. Then they gave all their money to Richard Branson for a flight on a spaceship that never existed. So I don't know what happened with that story. Nobody ever talked about it. But at least this guy's so he doesn't care, and probably doesn't even care about this downturn. Yeah, I agree with Victoria. He enjoys his space flight, but what a waste. And it seems like a much longer and dumber version than what Katy Perry went on, where they shoot them up to the stratosphere and they come right back down. At least that only takes all day. This is going to take months and months of the guy's time. Starship, your choice on grab bag. What would you like to choose? What have we got left?
That space flight story is amazing. I mean, buying Bitcoin early is risk-seeking behavior, but getting on one of Musk's rockets is an actual death wish. What do you think is going to happen? He's going to blow up, isn't it? He's definitely going to blow up. He's definitely not going to go a whole year on the way to Mars just to have a round trip for half an hour around the planet and then a whole year coming back. Someone who seeks risk is not going to be very happy in an environment where they're just sitting in a tin can for 2 years in order to get a bit of a view of a desert. absolutely ridiculous. And the entire story only exists to further hype the SpaceX IPO so that people will pump all of their money to Musk before the bubble crashes again.
Sad waste of his time. And it's also a sad commentary on the value of Earth and what $1 billion can buy for you. Because obviously he's not satisfied. He got $1 billion, and like starships, he's going to go sit in the box for 2 years to get there so he can look at it, so that he can fly back. It's a terrible idea, but again, he's probably romanced into the spaceshipness of it, something. I don't know. I've been watching For All Mankind again. I went back to the beginning, and it is very romantic and it's very exciting as the astronauts are like, you'll be the first man on Mars, you'll be the first man on the moon or woman on the moon or first person to fly around the moon. But that's all NASA people, like Victoria's saying. They've all been there before you. Yeah, he's going to be the first billionaire to do this. But there's a lot of things I think you could do on Earth as the first billionaire. The first billionaire to give away a bunch of money and such. Go ahead.
It's just made up. It's not even going to happen. Nothing Musk promises ever happens. This space journey will never happen. The Disney ride at least will happen.
He would be better off just going to Disneyland and taking it easy. And no one talked about Standard Charter still sticking with their 100K Bitcoin.
Might have lost him this time.
Then again, no one knows. I don't know if we still have the show, the people. Anyone's still with us? Go ahead with predictions or story of the week if you can still hear me, Victoria Jones.
Yes, well, I mean, I'll quickly comment on that story as my story of the week. It's just like, some people's optimism in the face of blatant reality just is not over. It's just kind of like, the price predictions towards the end of last year were ridiculous, and obviously they were shown to not be true, but people will not let go of that dream. You have to I think it's important to reset your expectations. That doesn't mean that, anything with Bitcoin is completely doomed, but it may not work in exactly the way you think. And of course it may well get back up to there, but it's the time that it takes that's the biggest issue.
Well, we are up around 1% in the last hour since we've been doing the show. That's a little something. Let's go to Adam for a prediction or a story of the week. Go ahead.
I think the Zcash hack is the story of the week. Inflation bug in a privacy coin, so no one has any idea if it was ever exploited. You'll never ever know for sure now how many Zcash tokens there are. Could be millions, could be billions, could be none. Who knows? Ridiculous. And I and the fact that they broke it by AI as well has to be the thing. All you've got to do is point hardware at these things now, discover the security bugs. Inflation, there's no way of auditing Zcash. It's just ridiculous.
It is it's a very interesting and fun story. And again, I told you so. Everyone said when they started these privacy coins, the real problem is that you couldn't audit them on a blockchain. And this is one of the reasons that I believe, just as a layman, that Bitcoin was not designed privacy first. I think from a development perspective, it would have been nearly impossible if you make a mistake and coins disappear and you don't know where they are. And now that's actually happened. So that's now a problem Zcash has to unwind. And I wish them the best of luck, but it sounds like an absolute disaster. I know very little about it technically, but like Adam was saying, broken by AI. Not going to be maybe the first, but not the last. So watch out there. AI is coming to break your projects. Robert, do you have a prediction or a story of the week? Go ahead.
Just agreeing on that. Reason I've stayed away from privacy coins. I've always had a problem with basically the fact that you could have an inflation bug and have no way of knowing seems like it kills the entire project before you even get off the ground. So I'm not surprised that we're running into this. It'll be interesting to see what other projects get destroyed because of AI tools, and Bitcoin is in the open, and highly robust so far. So let's hope we can get more implementations aside from the core woke core group, let's call them. But anyway, my story, I guess I would just say, if people are not familiar with Matthew Kratter and Matthew Kratter's Bitcoin University, this has become my like daily, probably my most common, aside from World Crypto Network, my most my most common daily sort of source of Bitcoin information, and I tend to agree with most of his takes. So check him out. Would love to. Maybe you could try to get him on the show sometime. I'd love to actually get to meet the guy and chat with him. But I just think he's very principled from what I've seen, and seems to have Bitcoin's mission and best interests at heart, and hasn't been compromised. I think he's pretty well connected and wealthy guy, but I think he's one of the few that hasn't been corrupted for whatever reason, as far as I can tell. So yeah, check him out, Matthew Kratter. Interesting stuff.
Well, that sounds good, Robert. And love to have him on the show. It sounds like he's producing excellent content. So there's lots of room for that. We have lots of possibilities out there. I don't have much to say this week. I said I'm rewatching For All Mankind. I started again at the beginning. It's super fun to go back to the 50s and the 60s and the era of space flight and the competition with the Soviets to build a moon base. And if you go back like I do, having watched the show, you're like, oh, that one's a hero, that one's a hero, and oh, bad things happen to that one, and oh, that one's a hero. And it's so amazing to see how casually they introduce these characters that now, through the decades of this show that goes 10 years forward at every break, you've now seen them do so much. You've now seen them live their lives. So it's super fun to go back to that. It's Thumper said in Bambi, I think it's down. I think it's bad. I think we need to do one of those. You look at your books now, you look at your AI, you do the Buildle thing, you appreciate what you have. I don't know if it's time to panic sell the rest. I don't know if you should panic buy. Those are your choices. It just seems there's a lot of panic involved. So none of those are probably good choices. But for now, we'll see how it turns out. Like everyone else, I think on the panel, I've been experimenting with AI and having a great time. I'm even considering starting like a show or a workshop where we could talk about AI together. If you're interested in that, say so in the comments, and I'll probably be putting it out on Twitter and things. But again, now that the price is dying and everyone's lacking faith and panicking and such, it's a great time for us to go on vacation here at the Bitcoin Group. We're going to go to our vacation schedule probably every other week. I can't guarantee that. It depends on what events we're having. We're still going to try to make that Majorca conference, though I think it's going to be like a funeral. I think people used to be worried about rent tax. Now it's more like, oh, please don't give me that Bitcoin. Please don't give me that 20-30% loss. Please, keep that away from me. I don't want that anymore. So you don't have to worry about that anymore. But yeah, we can come to the Bitcoin funeral in Majorca, and we'll see what's going on. Then we're gonna have a real Bitcoin funeral in November at Manchester. So I'm gonna have to get my Bitcoin is not dead shirt out and all of that because it's dead again. So I don't know. It's up like 1% in the last hour because we pleased the Bitcoin gods by doing this show. So thanks to everybody for joining us. Thanks for doing the show, giving us a thumbs up or a comment. Thanks to everybody in the chat hanging out with us today. And it'll probably be a couple of weeks on an uncertain schedule, but keep following the Twitter, keep following the YouTube. You can always watch the videos after the fact. But thanks for joining us. And until next time, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.